Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Blockument. Crypto education through everyday conversation.
Woo!
My name's Nate Talbot. I'm the executive director of Detroit Blockchain Center. And to my right is the inquisitive.
Ooh, I like that adjective today. Ashlee Rose. I am an everyday mother. I'm an online reseller. And I'm on a journey to figure out what the heck is going on with all this crypto, blockchain, Bitcoin, pick your coin stuff.
Pick your coin.
Yep.
Which coin do you pick?
Bitcoin.
You're a Bitcoin maxi?
Mosty.
All right. Bitcoin Mosty. And we got special guest in the house today. Mm-hmm. Who's our special guest?
Hi, everybody. I'm Brian, and I enjoy crypto, and I do this every day, and I teach people from Latin America how to do crypto. That's
right. So now we have an international perspective.
Yep. We're worldwide. Pow, pow, pow.
Pew, pew. All right. And what time is it according to the time chain?
Yes, let's take a look. I'm just waiting for it to change on me because the last one was mine 11 minutes ago.
Right, let's see. I'll do a refresh.
I have a feeling it's going to go right in the middle, and I'm going to be like, ah. All right, so the last block that was mine is block height 835,075. And that block size was 1.63 megabytes, which was 2,449 transactions. The total fees and subsidies on that were 6.41 Bitcoin, which equals 426,514 US dollars.
Nice.
The fine folks who won that are F2 Pool.
F2 Pool.
Yeah.
All right. And it looks like it's a healthy block. We're going to have to, you've been asking me for like 8 months to do a Block Explorer episode. We're going to have to get that in there.
Mm-hmm. Sneak it on in.
Sneak it on in. Maybe for the halving. I think we're recording pretty close to the halving date, the estimated halving date, which is only a few thousand blocks away.
Mm-hmm.
We are almost there. I got the calculator up. Tick-tock. Next halving.
Oh, yeah.
Next epic coming.
We've got to record that probably pretty soon here, huh?
Well, maybe we'll do it for the live show. It's supposed to fall on a Saturday. We record every Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
if it speeds it up a little, we could.
Well, we need to
slow down. Slow down. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we could celebrate it live on air.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. But that's not what we're talking about today.
That is not what we're talking about today.
What are we talking about today?
Well, I'll preface this by saying the other day you casually mentioned this, and I was like, what? We're going to have to probably do a show on this because it sounds like something silly. So the show today is, do Satoshis even exist? Because you allege that they do not.
Do Satoshis exist? Ooh, we're going controversial. Controversial. You got thoughts on it? What do you take?
Well, after the show, you kind of gave me a couple little nuggets. But
well, let's go to. Did I give Brian some nuggets?
Kind of. He was here for it.
All right. Well, let's see. Let's hear both your intake. Where you at?
I guess I mean, yeah, they exist. Why would they not exist? It's a word.
It is a word.
And it's something that we use as a unit of measurement.
That is very true.
And I purchased some Satoshi squares from you. So how could they not exist if I used them?
I would disagree that you used them.
Okay, well.
What do you think, Brian?
We said I used them.
I really like. I don't understand the question. What do you mean by saying do they exist? Like, because to me they exist.
That's exactly correct.
To me they exist because I can see it. I can see him, and I can transact with it, and I can send money everywhere if I want to. So they do exist to me. But if you're asking like, who is Satoshi, or like what's the question?
Do Satoshi, like the unit of measurement, Satoshi?
Yes.
Like when you see something, maybe like your coffee is 10,000 Satoshis. Does that?
I think a better framing, and this is how I came to this.
Okay.
Is actually dropped on me, and I had to go do about 3-4 weeks worth of research to wrap my own brain around it. This all stemmed from our great friends over at Ordinals theory in the inscriptions thing.
Okay,
right?
Okay.
Right. We all know what ordinals are.
Yes, but I don't know what ordinal theory is. Is it a company?
Well, there's two things, right? We'll just do a brief recap on ordinal. This is not an ordinals episode, but this is how I came to this sort of thinking.
Oh, you're saying the theory of ordinals.
Well, ordinals is a numbering theory.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
It's just the mathematical theory on how you can order something.
Order, ordinals.
Like from 0 to 100 or whatever.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Now, what we have on Bitcoin, we have ordinals, which is they use that numbering theory in order to assign inscriptions.
Okay.
To what? Satoshis, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, I'm going to tie it to a Satoshi. Now, this never made much sense to me because, again, even in the context before all of this, I understood Satoshis don't work the way ordinal people would have you think they work. Now, I think his name Rudimore or something, the guy who started ordinal theory for Bitcoin, and a lot of people use it. I think they do understand, but the way you describe it to people, like we do in this whole community, sort of sucks, right? We call it a wallet, but it's not really holding anything. It's more like a keychain. You know, we call these. So I'm debating with somebody one day on Twitter about how ordinals work and how they're worse NFTs. Because at least an NFT, it's tied to a smart contract. It's actually there on chain, and you can store the actual NFT on chain. Most don't. They use metadata and store the JPEG or whatever it is they're storing off chain. Okay. But you can store it right on the chain, just like you can put an inscription on chain, right?
Okay.
The difference is, like, smart contracts exist in the world of Ethereum or whatever smart contract platform you're using.
Exist meaning like it's its own entity?
Well, yeah, it's an actual thing inside of it, right?
Okay.
Versus Satoshis are just a unit of measurement. So go back, as I tell people oftentimes do, at least once a year, usually in January or on Halloween, go read the white paper. It's not that difficult to get through most of it, right? Like page 7 and 8 are pretty tough. It starts getting into the math, some of the math on, you know. But the easy part is Satoshi says, what is a coin? Do you know what a coin is?
In the white paper, it says that?
Yeah, how does the white paper define a coin?
No, not sure.
Any ideas, Brian?
No, I'm not sure. No.
I think most people probably don't understand. A coin is just a string of digital signatures.
A string of digital signatures. Okay. Wait, what? Okay. What?
That's a coin. When you're talking about what is a coin, what is a Bitcoin, it's a string of digital signatures. Basically, it says, here's this unit of money.
Okay.
Regardless of the weight of the money, how much money that represents. I control the ability to send or add data to or do whatever I want to with this. In the first 100-something years, Bitcoin miners are the only ones who will get new Bitcoin, right? And then they get to spend them, keep them, they can do whatever, right? You with me on that? That coin is just the ability to digitally sign. So when you send some Bitcoin, you have to sign it. You have to send a signature with it, right?
So the coin is like the ledger of who has the right to use that.
Yes. That's all a coin is. It's the history. So for my coin, its history stops with my signature. When I send Bitcoin to you, it appends one new signature, yours, and whoever has the last signature has the ability to spend that coin.
That's interesting. Why is he calling it coins?
Because we suck at terminology.
Okay.
Well, and in computer science, right, we use the terms tokens and coins to represent digital representations of things. And I think there was bleed over from that. I'm not sure. I never talked to Satoshi. Like, hey, Nakamoto, tell me what's going on, right?
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that's where some of that stuff comes from.
Yeah.
So first you have to understand that. So it doesn't mention SAT. So what is a SAT, right? Well, what are those digital signatures stored in, right? When you want to spend them, you get a UTXO. And now most people don't know what this is. They might have heard of UTXOs before.
Okay.
But they don't really know what a UTXO is.
Yes, what is it?
And it's not that hard. Well, it stands for unspent, the U.
Unspent.
Transaction, the TX.
Okay.
Output.
Output. Okay.
So, again, this is sort of counterintuitive. When I send you Bitcoin, once you have it in your wallet, you have an unspent output. Because when you spend it, you're sending it out. When you're receiving it, it's coming in. Correct?
Okay, yes.
So you got to just think of that. It's just a flow, right? It goes out and then it goes in, right?
Okay.
So the miner gets it. They send it out. And then whoever gets it in.
Unspent out.
So when you're spending it, you have
like,
inputs. And when you receive it, it's in
so it's kind of like accounting.
This is all Bitcoin is accounting.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Yeah, luckily I took one accounting class, so I kind of like understand what you're saying.
Yeah, nice. There it is.
Yeah, okay, because like a gift card would be kind of the same.
Yeah, a gift card is like an output.
Like you have control over this card that has a value on it, and at some point you're going to be able to spend this amount. It's an unspent output.
Correct. An unspent output until you spend it, and then it's a spent output. Right? Now, that's step one. So all we really have in Bitcoin are UTXOs. There's no Satoshis. There's no Bitcoins, right, in the terms that most people think about them. There are only unspent transaction outputs.
Okay.
Now, how do we measure those unspent transaction outputs? Or what's the smallest unit of an unspent transaction output you can have? That is what we call now Satoshis. We measure it in Satoshis, but the Satoshis aren't these like little things sitting inside the UTXO. You don't have a UTXO full of Satoshis. Just like if I'm buying a house, right? Well, when you're buying real estate, one of the first things you ask is, well, how much real estate I'm giving you? And they measure it in square feet.
Yeah.
Feet are consisted, what's the smallest measurement of a foot?
Like a centimeter or something?
Well, that's the smallest unit, that's the second smallest unit of a meter.
Oh, okay.
But of a foot,
inch.
it would be an inch. Where are the inches? If I say here's a square foot, now grab an inch.
Yeah.
The inches don't exist. They're an abstract concept on how we measure space, right?
Oh, boy.
There are no inches. It's just a unit of measurement.
Yeah.
So then I come to you and say, hey, I got this cool JPEG that I assigned to inch 3.
Yeah.
Well, where's inch 3?
Yeah.
What if I measured it this way? This is now inch 3. Your inch 9 is my inch 3.
Right. It would have to be like an agreed upon like
standard
system or something. Yeah.
Correct. So it's just a measurement. Same thing with Satoshis. Satoshis are just a measurement. The other way to think about this is like with dollars. Right? Now, most dollars, 95% of them today, are digital. There is no physical representation of that dollar.
Right.
Right? So, a dollar consists of what? What's the smallest unit of a dollar?
A penny.
So, if I sent you a digital dollar on Cash App, did I just send you 100 pennies?
Kind of.
You measure them. You can measure them in pennies, but there are no actual pennies there. It's just a measurement.
Yeah, you didn't even send dollars, really.
Well, I didn't even really send dollars.
Yeah.
But you did get 1 unit of a dollar, right?
Yeah.
And your wallet in Cash App now shows you allegedly have a dollar, right?
Yeah.
So
Made up
now
money.
Brian is like, oh yeah, but now that you got this dollar, I'm going to take penny number 32. He's like, well, which one is penny 32?
Yeah.
And this is sort of like what Ordinals does, right? What they do is they look at the dollar and they imagine there's a bunch of little pennies in there. And then they take those imaginary pennies and then they number them.
So it's imaginary land.
It's imaginary land. Right.
Oh boy.
So this is how UTXOs are constructed. This is what they do. If I have 1 Bitcoin and I want to send you a half a Bitcoin, right? I have, assumingly, a single UTXO Bitcoin, right? That's just one unspent transaction output. When I send it to you, just like if I was giving you if I had a $100 bill and wanted to give you 50, I would output that $100 bill to you. I would output that 1 Bitcoin UTXO to you, right?
Make change.
So how do I get my
air.
change? Right. Now with cash, I have to depend on you to make the change. And theoretically, you would send me one $50 unit back.
Yeah.
With Bitcoin protocol does all that. So I send out 1 Bitcoin saying I want to give you 50, half of that, and then the wallet, now most wallets do this for you, it says, well, all right, but there's a half a Bitcoin left. What should I do with that?
Yeah.
And you are essentially, what your wallet is doing for you is taking a new address in your wallet and assigning that to the other 50. So I'm sending 1 Bitcoin out, and 50, half of that goes to you, and the other 50% returns back to a different wallet address of mine.
A different wallet address?
This is the Bitcoin way. You should always use a different address. It's built to always do a different address. You should never use this. When you look through the blockchain, if we look through here, we should ever only be able to go 1 step backwards for any transaction we see.
Oh, wow. So that leads me to another
We should
question.
only. Doesn't mean you can. Many people
then
reuse the same address.
Does that mean like having like a domain name for your wallet is like kind of the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing?
Correct.
Interesting. I'm going to write that down.
But this is a big difference in Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Yeah. So for example, in Bitcoin, there are a lot of wallets that if you want to send money or like you want to receive, every time is different. It's a different address every time. But it's in your you know, in your Bitcoin, in your thing. But the address is just different.
Think of it like a. There's always the locker theory with what a UTXO is, how the blockchain works. So you go to like a train station or a bus station, you have those lockers.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I see.
So when you have a private key, the way we commonly think of it is you have key to one of those lockers, and I can take the Bitcoin out of that locker and send it to any other locker I want to. Right. But I can only send it into the locker. I can't take it out of the other lockers.
Right.
But that's an oversimplification. Really what happens with Bitcoin is with your private key on a modern Bitcoin wallet, you actually have billions of lockers. You have a master key that opens up every locker in the train station because you have the private key, and only you have the master key that will unlock all of them. And most of them will sit empty for all of time because this is how many Bitcoin addresses are. This is just the cryptography of it all.
I feel like you lost me. You have a key to every single Bitcoin?
No. When you start a wallet, you write down the 12 words, maybe 24 words, right? That is a representation, that seed phrase is a representation of your private key.
Yes.
That's how your private key is derived, okay? Your private key is just this long secret signature that only you should know. Anybody who knows this key can access the Bitcoin.
Okay.
Within any of those wallets. That key, though, doesn't just control one address. It controls
infinity.
It's not an infinite amount, but it is billions of them.
That you could potentially use to send Bitcoin to if you needed to
if you wanted
store
to.
some.
And what your wallet is doing when you give it that key, it's keeping track of all the billions. And it says, all right, well, let's start with wallet number 1. Right? Whatever that address is, we'll start there.
So your
first Bitcoin will go there.
So once you enter Bitcoin, you have a key that you have like a warehouse full of lockers that you can store your Bitcoin in if you need to one day. But you most likely will not ever use them all because there's just too many lockers.
It's just more lockers than you will ever utilize.
Okay, so it's just really prepared.
It's really prepared, right? And so when you get Bitcoin, right, now you can go in and actually physically pick which locker you want it in if you have the right wallet or the technical know-how.
Okay, which I don't.
But that's more than what most people want to do. They just want to feel like they're getting it. And so what your wallet is doing, right? It's managing those lockers for you. So it says, all right, you got 0.3 Bitcoin in locker 1, 0.4 Bitcoin in locker 2, 0.2 Bitcoin in locker 3, and 0.1 Bitcoin in locker 4. And it shows you have 1 Bitcoin.
Okay. That's
but
what I was just gonna
really,
ask.
it's just summing how much Bitcoin you have in each locker. Each one of those lockers we call a UTXO.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, is it a difficult or like, is it a problem when somebody tries to go and spend their money, or does like Bitcoin just know, like, okay, if you want to spend, you know, a half of it, does it know, like, all right, take all of from locker 2, 7, and 5, and then like half of what you have in locker 97?
Oh,
Go ahead.
it knows. Like, right?
Like, am I responsible for saying, like, going and being like, all right, well, these lockers have this much, so take it from here? I mean, I guess you're saying you could do that.
You could do that. I've done it.
Yeah. Bitcoin doesn't know any of it. Bitcoin knows locker 3 has this much Bitcoin assigned to it, and that's it. That's all Bitcoin knows.
But, like, if you go to spend it, will it know to, like, just pull from wherever it can?
No.
So I'm going to have to be like, pull from this locker, this locker, this locker, and then this much. Like, you know, when you're making change, and you're like, okay, here's all my 20s. Now I need, I need a 5 and 3 1s, right? So would you tell it, like, all right, take 5 from this locker and then 3 1s from this locker, essentially?
Right. Yeah, but you're not doing that. You can. You're typically not doing it. This is what your wallet is doing for you.
So the wallet is doing it, not Bitcoin.
Right. So you're going to say, I have 1 Bitcoin spread out amongst 5 different lockers, right? Mm-hmm. I need to send Alice a half a Bitcoin. I don't have the best way to do, because remember, we look at the fees, right?
Okay.
Where are the fees coming from? Why are fees varying, right?
Yeah.
Well, the fees vary based on the data that you use, right? And so when you send some Bitcoin, if you send it from just one wallet, one locker, whatever amount is in there, if that's all I'm sending, well, I'm paying whatever fee I agree. And that's the minimum. Bitcoin doesn't care how much is stuffed in that locker. It doesn't care if there's a 1,000th of a Bitcoin or if there's 30 Bitcoin in there. It's going to charge you the same fee because that's one data
So if
string.
you're using more than one locker, it's going to be a bigger fee.
It's going to be a bigger fee, right?
Okay, so you pay more for better security?
This has nothing to do with paying more for security.
Okay.
You're paying more because when we were talking about a single unit, right?
But then what's the incentive to use more than one locker if it's not security? Privacy? I don't know.
Yes.
I'm lost.
Well, it is privacy. So this is where a lot of people get lost. This is where UTXO management comes from, which is really what ends up being all about, UTXO management and what are UTXOs and why it's important to stop thinking of Satoshis as the things we're actually sending. We're sending bills, like $100 bills. We measure those bills in Satoshis. There are no Satoshis floating around. There's no little, like, particles, no Satoshis floating around.
You can't sign your control to a Satoshi, is what it comes down to.
Yes, when I send you a UTXO, right, again, what it's doing is, think of those bus lockers. If I'm sending you 0.3 Bitcoin, and in bus locker number 3, I have 0.3 Bitcoin, I'm just going to say, hey, Bitcoin, take this UTXO, take it out of here, destroy it, and create a new UTXO worth 0.3 Bitcoin that Ashlee now can control. Right? And that's a cheaper fee, that's easy management, that's what that is. But if I want to send you 0.5 Bitcoin, but I only have 0.3 Bitcoin in one locker and 0.3 Bitcoin in another locker.
Right, now you got to make change.
Now I'm going to send you 0.3 Bitcoin. So now I'm not going to have one output. I'm not going to have one UTXO. I'm going to have a UTXOs. Because I'll have one output for 3.3 Bitcoin, another output for 0.3 Bitcoin, and then those endpoints will go 0.5 Bitcoin. It'll destroy those UTXOs and say, Ashlee now has 1.5 UTXO. And then my wallet will be asking, well, what am I doing with this other 0.1 UTXO?
I'm calling
Here,
UTXOs
go put it in
gift
locker
cards
number 9.
from now until the end of time.
Go put it in the other locker.
The gift cards.
And so when you hear people talk about UTXO management, this is what they're talking about. Because what happens when you have the price of Bitcoin goes up, the fees go up, because so many people are using Bitcoin, like with the Ordinals cases, right, with the inscriptions, so many people are using it. You have a locker that has 1 you have 15,000 UTXOs or 15,000 Bitcoin. What's the best way to say this so it's not confusing? You have one UTXO worth 15,000 Satoshis, right?
Okay.
But the fee is more than that. The fee might be 16,000 Satoshis. Well, now you can't use that Bitcoin.
Right.
It costs you more to use it
unless you put
than
them
you
in.
have.
Unless you put them in.
But you can't put it in the same locker. You can never tell Bitcoin, right? Just because I send it to the same address doesn't necessarily mean putting it in the same locker. I'm still creating little UTXOs. Think of them like bills.
So every UTXO
I might
gets
stuff a
its own
$5
locker.
bill in there, and I might stuff a $16 bill in there, and I might stuff a $32 bill in there, right? We're sort of shifting the locker analogy there. It sort of shifts its purpose. But yeah, you can't reuse a UTXO. I can't say I have one UTXO worth 0.5 Bitcoin. Hey, Ashlee, send me another 0.5, so this one UTXO is 1 Bitcoin. It doesn't happen.
Okay,
Bitcoin
wait.
will always
so is
create
the locker the UTXO?
Let's leave the locker analogy.
Let's leave it behind.
Because you're
Throw it
shifting
away.
the meaning of what the lockers
Sorry.
are now.
Okay, throw it away. We're throwing it away.
So you got a UTXO.
Yep.
You only get to use a UTXO once.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Now, when that UTXO, that's all it'll be. If you have too many small UTXOs, when people say like, don't keep it on an exchange or whatever, buy it and instantly send it. So if somebody goes on Cash App, buys $6 worth of Bitcoin, then sends it to their cold storage wallet, they created a $6 UTXO. A couple weeks ago, I mean, shoot, right now, if I look at the median fee, so if I sent you if 8 years ago you bought one Bitcoin that was worth $1, right?
Okay.
Today, and right now the median fee to send a Bitcoin is $1.69, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So you would just lose that forever?
Well, you don't lose it. You have it, but you don't have access
Yeah.
to it until
Yeah.
the fees drop below
Yeah.
the value.
Will that ever be?
That's going to happen to a lot of people
I
because they do these small transactions, and this is what UTXO consolidation is about.
Can you do that?
Yeah, you should do that. So you have your wallet, you have those lockers. You now look at this locker and you see you have 30 lockers full of 0.4 or less
Right.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You can just create one transaction to yourself,
Right.
and you say, here's all the outputs. Locker 1 through locker 30 are my outputs. I want to send all of these to this one address, which is a new UTXO.
So I have to know how, first of all, how would I know? And second of all, I have to know that I have all of these little tiny, like we'll call them micro amounts in different little UTXO lockers. And I have to know that I have to consolidate them to, resend them to myself. So now I have one big gift card.
Yep, it's no different than the jar of coins people save at home every night. They take the change out their pocket and
Yeah.
put it in a jar.
Yeah.
Right? You might have nickels, you might have some pennies, you might have some quarters, you might even have a couple bills in there, right?
Right.
But that's a whole bunch of a quarter is just a UTXO worth 25 cents.
Right.
25 sats.
Like where can you spend, like you can barely buy anything with 25 cents.
Right. You don't even really have those little slot machine things where you can get gum and stuff from.
Yep.
Right?
Times
So what
have
you do
changed.
instead is you take all those little UTXOs, the 25 cent ones, the dollar bill ones, the penny ones, the nickel ones. You take those little, typically to a bank and say, here's a whole bunch of UTXOs. This equals $100.
Right.
Please give me one UTXO worth $100.
Right.
They take the pennies and the quarters and the nickels and they give you one bill. Now you have a $100 UTXO.
Right.
Well, the fees probably ain't going above $100. But then you can start setting, if you're going to do good UTXO management. And again, I say this is when they say, we're not ready for mass adoption.
Right, yeah.
You shouldn't be doing any of this. Your wallet should intelligently be doing most of this behind the scenes for you.
Is that considered third party though? Like,
Well, the wallet is a third party, but if you use a good open source wallet, you can see the code.
Yeah.
And more importantly, because you can't read the code probably,
correct.
you can choose who you trust that
Right.
can read code. It's like,
Right.
well, I don't trust this guy and that guy, but I
Yeah.
know Brian, and I believe he knows code. And if Brian's telling me it's good, And then if I'm really good, I'm like not just Brian, but Brian, Chantel, and so and so and so and so. Then all of a sudden.
Now I'm going to say a little something that might make some folks upset. Is this a little similar to like the banks that we have now, where like it's a third party thing? Like we're like, oh, we trust Chase to they seem like good people.
No, banks are not open source.
I see. So if they're not open
That's
source,
the whole difference. Yes.
they're not open source, so it's not the same.
So they do have a ledger, like Bitcoin is a ledger, but with Bitcoin you can see everything. Like you can see like what they're doing, where they're moving the money. Like in this case with the banks, like you don't know nothing. They can tell you this, but there's no way you can verify.
Right.
So it would be more accurate if banks were open source, where you could just go into their ledgers and see what was going on.
Well, so we look at these ETFs now, right? And we'll do a show maybe in a few weeks about an update with the ETFs and all that.
Thank God.
But you look at like the ETFs. So one ETF, Bitwise, has declared it is going to publicly share its Bitcoin address where it keeps all the Bitcoin. And so anybody can look and see. And so they have to make statements to the SEC and, just financial regulators and whatnot, declaring how much Bitcoin they have at any point in time.
Yeah.
Historically, we just got to trust them. This is what happened with the gold ETFs, right? They were like, oh, yeah. No, we have, 10,000 ounces of gold. Wink, wink. They only have 9,000 and they printed... Right, they oversold a little bit because who's going to catch them?
Right.
And how do we validate it?
If they regulate, who's going to catch them if they're the ones who regulate the stuff?
Right. And then the government's like, well, we're going to send super producer Chantel in to regulate it. And then when she shows up, I'm like, well, here's a few ounces of gold for yourself.
You want to take it home?
You want to take it home?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Just tell them everything's good here.
There's a lot of trust inherent to those systems.
Yeah.
So what Bitwise theoretically did was said, here's the address. Anybody who buys an ETF, it'll go to one of these addresses. And then when they publish a statement, this is how much Bitcoin we have. You can just look.
So the public can audit it, essentially.
The public, anybody can audit it. You can't audit Chase Bank into your bank account. They'll tell you how much you have.
Yeah.
But then you ask them to prove you have that.
Well, that's interesting. So, eventually, so we could theoretically stage some kind of run on something that isn't Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin will be the only ETF that holds up, and then we switch.
Yeah.
Should we do that?
I mean, this is theory. This is what happens with like bank runs.
Yeah.
When last year we had 3 top 20 banks. Go have a bank run on them.
Yeah.
All right, and there's a couple more on board. Right.
Yes.
Right.
But the only bank
now,
that would
today.
But it's a bank run. It's a bank run because people have these alarms. It's a bank run because
that was a bank run alarm.
Right.
Because of the same trust.
You got to trust.
Yeah.
And when Brian shows up to the bank and
I don't
says,
trust them.
I want my money, and they say no, and then he goes, Nate, they ain't got no money.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I have no other way to verify that.
Right.
Yeah.
But
So I go withdraw mine, and then you go withdraw yours because I withdrew mine, and it becomes a chain reaction.
And the only people who survive are those with Bitcoin.
Those with a hard asset that they have the power to control.
Yeah.
Right? But bank runs, let's say you set up the exact same banking system we sort of have today.
That's where I was going to go
except
next.
it's on a transparent blockchain. Well, now that can prevent a bank run because at any point when I store my wealth or my dollars, let's say you have derivatives and all the same BS that happens with banking system now. But now when I enter into that agreement with, let's say, Bank of America, right, I can audit their supply. If they're going to tell me they're going to fractionalize, the banks don't really fractionalize anymore, for the record. They don't borrow you don't put money in savings if they borrow and shit. They just print the money.
Like I told you, it's just made up money.
It's just made up money. But even if you're okay with that.
What do they call it?
Even if you're okay with that, when you go into that business, right, you're going to say, what's your rules on printing money? What's your rules on fractional reserves?
You should say
tell me all this. They can give you the statement. And they can say, this is what it is. Then you don't have to call them and be like, hey, what's going on over there? Things don't seem right. You just look on chain. This either matches what they told me or it doesn't match. And so bank runs become less of an option because you can see it before it gets to that point.
Well, there wouldn't be a bank run because there'd be no need to pull it out. Because the only reason you'd pull it out is if your friend said, hey, they ain't got no money.
And you don't know and you're afraid.
You can see it because you can see it. You know, the money's there. You know, you can see it. So
my money's right there.
Yeah.
Or, hey, you said you were only going to lend my money out 2 to 1 and you're lending it out 3 to 1.
Yeah.
Now it's a justified bank run, but everybody sees it, so now the bank is decentivized from doing that.
I have so many questions, and I feel like we need to do an episode on this.
I think we said earlier, hopefully this will break a lot of your conceptions of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But these little details, and I think it's really important now in this going into a new epoch of Bitcoin with a halving coming up, right?
Yeah.
A new bull market coming up. Some would say we're in it. I'm not going to declare it until we pass the halving. But we've as a culture, as a subculture, we have oversimplified a lot of the aspects of how Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, how this entire thing works.
Yeah.
We've oversimplified it because it's such a new concept, right? Nothing like this has ever existed in life before. And so we've oversimplified it. And in doing so, I think we've led a lot of people astray. They don't understand. They think they have this understanding, and this is that Dunning-Kruger thing. It's like you know a little bit about something, and so your confidence level is through the roof.
Yeah, and then you get smashed.
Right. And this is why you see more and more who would be called in the Bitcoin realm. I think this is probably also true in the Ethereum realm as well. You see more and more of the who used to be maxis, quote unquote maxis, they're getting ousted by the new maxis now. Because the old maxis have this fundamental understanding of how Bitcoin works or how
The
Ethereum
new maxis,
works.
you're saying?
The old maxis have a fundamental understanding. They get there is no this is to finish my original story, how I even came onto this concept, right? I was having this debate with somebody, and I was telling them, like, you can't number Satoshis because I wrongly used the analogy that sending a UTXO is like sending 1,000 cars under a bridge into a tunnel, right? That nobody can see. And then as they leave, trying to guess which car is which, even though they're all identical, right? So you just pretend the first car in the tunnel is going to be the first car out of the tunnel, even though it's probably not, because Bitcoin doesn't do that. That was my analogy.
Yeah.
Then Luke Dashner, who's he runs Ocean Pool, old school Bitcoiner, replied like that. Nah, there are no Satoshis.
Oh.
He dropped the Matrix thing on me with no explanation, no nothing.
Just dropped it and left.
I dropped it and left. And so that's what drove me down. I started asking people, like, what does that mean? There are no Satoshis. He's right. There are no.
But there are no Satoshis, like, does that matter?
Yes.
Okay.
Because you're doing things like ordinals and inscriptions.
Oh, I see.
And I'm not saying you shouldn't do ordinals inscriptions. I myself don't really like them.
Yeah.
Because I don't like the concept. I like the freedom money, not the play with money. I get their arguments. I ain't saying I necessarily buy them. I get it. I'm neutral on it. If ordinals are you, do you. But many people confuse what they are because they don't understand what a SAT is. They don't understand what a UTXO really is.
Right.
And that's just one single example of the misconception people have. UTXO management. This is why this has become a big thing the past, year or so, the past 10,000, 20,000 blocks, especially. UTXO management has become sort of mainstream in the Bitcoin world because you're going to get stuck. I was wrong 5 years ago telling you just stack sats. Buy it, send it to your own wallet. I forced you sort of to create these itty bitty UTXOs that 2 years from now, 3 years from now, and on spot dates, even today, depending on the demand for block space because of inscriptions, right, or anything based off of ordinals, now are unspendable for you.
I see. So you stacking sats is creating multiple very small UTXOs that are unusable due to the fees, the amount, like the fees, and that's why there is now an emerging, like, I don't know, market or whatever for UTXO management, because all of these people have been stacking sats,
right?
But they can't spend them and without being charged, and then they're making it a wash / they owe money.
There are also
is that correct though?
There are also conspiracies about it. Like some people will say that the Ordinals are doing that just like to slow Bitcoin down. You know what I mean? Like they're conspiracies.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a state attack. I don't necessarily buy into that. And even if it is, I welcome it. I love attacks on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Because look, I met a dude a couple weeks ago at a meetup in Canada who was like huge on the ordinal space. He does them across chains. He caused like a 10% spike in Litecoin transactions, or like Litecoin size, the size of the chain, because of the inscriptions he was pumping. Now, most people would be like, "You're attacking you're attacking Bitcoin. You do." I'm like, this is a dude. He's a smart dude, right? But like you a dude.
Like a regular
if
person.
Bitcoin or whatever token you like, coin you like, if you can't sustain a dude, if we can't stop, if Bitcoin is going to die because some motherfuckers want to use JPEGs,
we're not ready.
Yeah, it was never going to work in the first place.
Yeah,
no.
That's a good point.
Because what do you think's going to happen? Right? Because these people are at least they're motivated by something. Governments don't have to be motivated. Governments don't need to profit. Right? If a government wants to attack your token, your coin, your blockchain, they don't care that it's going to cost them $3 trillion and they'll never make anything. Especially if they can print the $3 trillion.
Although
they don't care.
That's what they do, yeah.
And so if we're worried about some random dude or people who are doing some JPEG or silly stuff,
we got bigger
weren't going to make it in the first place.
No.
Yeah.
Right. So I embrace these attacks. And then when they don't work, it just proves that it's one more thing. You know, again, how do you know the lock on your door works until somebody tries to kick it in?
Yeah.
And when they can't, when SWAT shows up in your house and can't kick your door in,
that lock is a good lock.
You know you got good security.
I think that the whole thing with the ordinals, I think is, you know, like I can see the point of view of a big Bitcoin maxi or like somebody that understands Bitcoin as a core. Like I can see it, and I kind of like agree on, like I'm on that side. But I also know that if I don't want to do any other crypto, I just want to do Bitcoin. You know, I want to play with it. I wanna buy ordinals, and I wanna do stuff with it. Inside, you know, on chain. I don't want to spend it outside. I don't want to pay in the store with it. But I just want to use it outside. And so I think it's a great idea. Honestly, it's a good idea. But I understand why some people don't like it.
You're saying to have ordinals is a good idea?
Not to. I mean, yes, to play with it.
That they exist?
That they exist, and like because like other coins are doing the same thing, and like why you can't do it on Bitcoin?
That's actually, write that down. I think that should be an episode. Why you can't do that in Bitcoin? I have tons of opinions on that. I generally agree with you.
Why can't we do, what is it?
Why can't we do it on Bitcoin?
Do what? What's it?
Exactly.
Yes.
Whatever.
Exactly. Whatever. Yeah.
Underline it. Why can't we do it
I am underlining
on Bitcoin?
Okay, I did it.
But we can't do anything because until you really understand it.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And it's very hard to make a decision on what you should or shouldn't have until you understand it. Ordinals, inscription. Ordinals is a theory. There are no ordinals on Bitcoin.
Right. It's
Right?
a unit of like measuring, kind of.
Well, it's a
Or
unit of
ordering.
tracking.
Ordering.
They look at a block.
That's what it's tracking. Yeah.
Yep.
Can I have?
Ha-ha.
I'm there already.
Breakfast bourbons in the house. Nah, I messed up.
He's
I didn't
keeping
get,
you on your
I didn't
toes,
get the
Chantel.
I didn't get the Irish whiskey for St. Patrick's Day. Today is St. Patrick's
yeah.
Day at this block height.
Yeah.
I got lazy last night. I apologize. It's all right.
okay.
I'll make up for it later. I'll get some green whiskey.
I actually kind of forgot about that.
No, like for real.
But you
like,
are wearing
why
green.
why can't we do stuff on Bitcoin? Like for example, yesterday I paid like $150 on Ethereum just just to buy something. But like 150, it's a lot of money.
Well, here's the thing, right? You don't until people understand it. So, as an example, right? Ethereum was spawned because the Bitcoin community didn't want it on Bitcoin. Vitalik, first tried to get it on Bitcoin. Wanted it on Bitcoin. He was a Bitcoiner. Bitcoiners were like, no, there are other priorities, which I agree with that sentiment. But now, today, last year, 2023, right, there was tons of furthering development on side chains, layer 2s, how federations work, doing merge mining, all these other concepts, right? BitVM, which I've talked about very
Writing all these
loosely.
down.
Right.
Foreign language.
There's these things that, Bitcoin has spent 15 years trying to perfect just transfer value. No DeFi, no advanced concepts. And while other chains were like Ethereum were adding new things with their EIPs, Bitcoin's BIPs were taking things out. That thing, there's a big debate in Bitcoin around this block height about I think it's CTV, right? Which we won't get into. This is sort of technical.
Yeah.
This is the thing, if I got the one right, so if you really know what you're talking about on a technical level, you can leave in the comments what the actual thing is. But I think it's CTV. This was a thing Bitcoin had, and Satoshi turned it off, took it out. Because we don't really need that. That's just bloat. And it could cause more problems because we don't really fully understand, whatever. So Satoshi took it out. Now people want to reactivate it. Maybe it's OpCat. It's CTV, OpCat. They're all there's a lot of things happening.
Oh, boy. Somebody knows.
I'd have to dive in because I'm not the developer. But, right? Bitcoin has spent years taking things out of the code to make it the most lean. And because of that, people have gotten creative, like with the BitVMs, which is Bitcoin virtual machine versus an EVM, an Ethereum virtual machine, to figure out how to do smart contract-like things without needing to implement a smart contract. And Ethereum uses accounts, not UTXOs. They do an account model thing because smart contracts are hard as dick. When you're trying to use UTXOs, ask anybody in the Cardano community. Cardano uses UTXOs just like Bitcoin does, but they want to do smart contracts just like Ethereum does. And if you know anything about the Cardano community, it moves really slow.
Wow.
If it moves at all, because maybe it's impossible to do. Right? So you have to make these compromises to make these smart contracts if you want to rush it.
So you're
what we're starting to find in Bitcoin, right, is that, maybe we can do some of the same things these smart contracts are doing, these smart contract platforms are doing, without needing the smart contract, without needing to needing to change Bitcoin. Ordinals is an example of that. If you get enough consensus on a social layer that this numbering theory is legit, then why ain't it legit? Money's made up. Why can't the numbering theory be made up?
Exactly.
And you don't have to change Bitcoin. And if you don't want to use the numbering theory, Bitcoin doesn't recognize it. So Bitcoin doesn't care.
We're so early, like super early. Like imagine explaining this to your mom. Like I'm imagining I'm like explaining this to my mom.
I have trouble explaining it to my kids. It's
you know
difficult.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
hey mom, you have to have this UTX. I'm like, okay, what?
Is it because like we're so early, so we don't have like all of that convenience built in yet? Is
I
that
think
what we're
so.
saying? Because like when we go to the bank and we use the bank, we don't know how the bank works.
Exactly.
But they do it for you. It's the same thing, but they do it for you.
Right.
Like on close, like
But-
nobody knows, but yes.
Right, but is that part of like we're early because like we need to know how it works because we don't have the option to use some sort
No,
of convenience.
I think
something.
you don't have to know how it works. Just like do you know how?
That's what I'm saying. That's my whole.
Do you
point.
know how religion works? You don't know, but you believe in something, right? Like if you're religious, but you don't know. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to
I think
know
it's more
exactly.
like your mechanic in the car.
Yeah,
Well, I think
it's
they
just an
all
example.
are the same thing, right?
Yeah, like you don't have to know how it works. You just want to know that it works. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because people are tired, and all people really want, right? This is why politics sucks. This is
Yeah.
why division of economic status sucks. But why capitalism can be great is people really just want like a couple things, right? They want to have the very basic needs, right? Shelter, food, water, and then they want to have a good time. Like
Yeah.
I want to be happy at points in my life.
Yeah.
Right?
Some point.
And that's all I really care about. I don't
Yeah.
give a shit how you give it to me.
Right.
Just give it to
I
me.
just want it. Now, that's part of the problem. People want to give it to them. But,
That's the big
but,
problem.
but this is also part of why we do technology.
Yeah.
To give people things that they used to have to either get it themselves or die trying, literally. Now technology makes those things easier, right? So, yeah, at the end of the day, people don't care how it works. They just want it to work. And I think that's true with all of this. When
Yeah.
Bitcoin, when crypto, when metaverses and augmented realities and all these things get to a point where they're actually just easier for people to use,
Yeah.
they don't care how it works as long as it works.
Right. Yeah.
Our job, my job, the job I've assigned myself is to make sure when you get to that world, it's the least dystopian version of it
Yeah.
possible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're really battling is the dystopian version. And I feel like we've just totally gone off rail with
Yeah.
what we're
I
the
know.
point is we can talk about that and what, like sort of what Bitcoin solves.
There's
maybe
so
one
much
of
to
those.
talk about, like the ETFs, like
Yeah, it's a
even price action.
everything. This is
Yeah.
why we have to do this weekly. So, at the end of the day, though, the very first thing you have to understand is on the Bitcoin network, sats don't exist. They're a unit of measurement,
Right.
no different than inches or pennies in digital money, right?
So,
that's first. But
yeah.
when you start talking about layers, like on Lightning Network, well, sats do exist. It's a layer on top, and they take the concept of sats, just like Ordinals takes the concept of numbering, and they utilize it. So in Lightning, you actually are transacting in sats. And not only are you transacting in sats, you're transacting in millisats.
Yeah.
They've taken a sat and broken that down to like, I think, 1,000 or 10,000 units.
And that's super cool because in a bank, you only see 1 cent, right? You only see 1 cent, but there's more money than 1 cent.
Yeah.
There's 0.099999 whatever, right? And that's like, but you don't see that. The bank only shows you 1 cent. But they're making that money, that like the arbitrage or the spread, they're making it, but you don't see it.
There are going to be a bunch of people who say Brian's full of shit right now, and I challenge you to go to a gas station and look at the price.
I know. That's what I said.
No, it's
That's exactly what
it is. Like you don't see
No,
it,
exactly.
but it's there.
It's there. So that being said, I know this is controversial. Maybe you think we're full of it.
Yeah.
It's all a
Let us
scam.
know.
I honestly, I think everything is a scam. Like the whole fiat system, the whole
Get
It
it.
is a
I
scam.
know.
Everything.
We've unleashed something.
Everything.
Your time has come, Fiat. If they disagree
Yeah.
and they want to tell me and put me in my place that sats do exist and I'm being way too technical
Yeah.
or whatever,
Let
how
us
can
know.
how can they let us know?
On Twitter or X, we are at The Blockument. We are on Facebook and we are on TikTok. We're also on YouTube. And you can also find us at theblockument.com. And this is The Blockument with a K.
That's right.
Yes.
Blockument
You
with
can
a
see
K.
it on your screen right now. Right down here.
Oh yeah, the blockument. There it is. There it is. There it is. It's someplace. It's over there. There it is. All right. All right. So, cool.
Yep.
Thank you for joining, and until next time, come for the riches.
Stay for the revolution.
Peace.
Peace.